Hi, Leo. Welcome to your July 2020 Astro Alchemy. It's Raina here. So, this is a month where you have your solar return. Now, the actual official solar return is the exact degree of the sun in Leo for you, and that may or may not be on your actual birthday. It could be like about a day difference. But in general, when the sun goes into your own sign, we consider that the solar return, and that should feel really good for you. You might feel much more energized than when the sun was in your 12th house. This is more of a quiet month, thankfully, although we do have a lunar eclipse towards the beginning of the month. Speaking of the beginning of the month, Saturn goes back into Capricorn on the 1st of July. Now, Saturn has dipped his toe into Aquarius, which is your opposite sign, and hence the 7th house of committed partnerships. Or you could say partnership if you're talking about your significant other. So, Saturn will go back into Aquarius at the end of this year. And for sure, in 2021, Saturn will be in that 7th house for you. But from now until then, you're going to have Saturn in the 6th house, which is a house that Saturn is probably much better put to use, because the 6th house is a house of your daily schedule, the house of health, and the house of your service to others, which we sometimes referred to as work, but it can also be volunteering, which is a form of work, I guess you could say. So that qualifies. There may be things that need to be tweaked in your life as you experiment with certain, I don't know if you'd call it disciplines or ways of doing things like your daily schedule. This is particularly significant if you're somebody who has your own business. Perhaps due to recent events, your life kind of was turned upside down, as happened for many of us. Yeah, I guess it really doesn't matter if you work for yourself or not, because even people who worked for others, as a matter of fact, I would say people who worked outside of the home had the biggest change in their daily routine. And now that things are kind of in the stage of maybe people who got furloughed going back to work, maybe it's even kind of been altered to some degree where you work from home part of the time. I don't know. I'm kind of curious how that's all panning out for people. But in any case, this is something that you may really have to think about on your end. You may not have complete control over all aspects of this. You may have certain requirements if you're working for somebody else. However, you still may be trying to decide how this is going to benefit you the most, because this may also relate to your health, given that the 6th house can be about your diet, your exercise routines, and anything that promotes health, and Saturn is about routines and discipline. And when Saturn is retrograde, sometimes people are tempted to let go of certain disciplines, and that can sometimes be helpful as well, because it allows people to see if the disciplines are really helping or hurting. For instance, sometimes people exercise to the point where they injure themselves. And that doesn't make a lick of sense, if you're trying to improve the strength of your body or become more fit. You obviously need to make sure that you're not going to hurt the body by overstressing it. So it's really all about experimentation and deciding what works and what doesn't work. This can also bring back a certain period of time when you may be working, longer hours. Saturn in the 6th house can be like a certain kind of like hard, like I don't know how to put it. Doing more harder working schedule. So that means that you might be working longer hours or something along those lines. Remember that this too shall pass. If anything like that sounds like it's going to be true for you. So Leo is actually a workaholic sometimes. So that might not be very daunting anyway. So in addition to that, we have this lunar eclipse in the same sector, the 6th house, and this is happening on the 5th of July at 13 degrees of Capricorn. And this can be a change in your workplace, a change in the way that you do things on a daily basis. This can bring some sort of closure to a health matter or an awareness of a health matter in a very obvious way. And maybe that's a good thing if you've been trying to figure out what is going on. Maybe you get your answer at that time or in this span of time. We can't just look at that one day as when this could occur. And this is an area that has been hit for the last couple of years. So you may have had quite a lot of changes, even in the work environment, the type of work that you're doing, the setup. When I say environment, maybe you have already switched. Even before the shutdown, you were working from home, and before you used to be in an office or some other permutation. But the point is that something, this could even be like the height of your career or some kind of highlight, promotion, something good. But even from your end, it can be an emotional time when you realize what your dharma is, which means like your service to others, your path, your life path. And so that's happening on the 5th. Mercury goes direct at 5 degrees of Cancer on the 12th. So Mercury, is in that house for you, Leo, that is like the house of past lives, the 12th house. So it's in a place where it's not, it doesn't function the way it normally does. Because usually, since Mercury connects with communication and our thought patterns, the way our mind works, in the 12th house, this is in a very dreamlike state. So it is more receptive for sure. And so this can relate to, mental impressions forming. When it was retrograding, you may have even had like past life memories creep up or crop up, or maybe memories, what I call cellular memories from very early on in life that feel really weird, that's felt very weird because you didn't, it was triggering emotion as well. That's what I have experienced when I see something and it reminds me of something else from my past. And there's a very strange feeling with that. I'm sure some of you know what I'm talking about. Just like Mercury in the 12th house, it's hard to articulate because it's like so bound up in feeling and just, I don't know, things that cannot be uttered. Oh gosh, what am I talking about here? But anyway, Mercury goes direct on the 12th. Mars is in Aries all month long, and you being a fire sign, Leo, this is really great because it means that there's a trine from your first house. We're talking about the 9th house, aren't we? Yes, we are. And Mars in the 9th house can have the effect of somebody who's on a crusade. So this may relate to other areas of life for you, Leo. If you are traveling, then it's self-explanatory because Mars is very active. But perhaps if it's other than that, there may be some kind of intellectual pursuit that is really lighting your fire, making you very enthusiastic. The 9th house is a mental house, but it's like higher knowledge. So we're talking about university level knowledge, or it's also called abstract knowledge. So this is the house of God, and we could talk about religious studies and philosophy and things like that. And Mars gives a person a burning desire to do something. Maybe they're putting a lot of energy into something. So this particular area is lit up in that way. And there may even be some career connection to this house. If you're traveling to study yoga, to be able to teach hatha yoga to others in the future, that could possibly be the connection. If you are traveling at this time in July, or even if you're listening in June, Mars is going into Aries at the end of June. This can have the effect of somebody who travels, and I'm not talking about, if you live in Illinois and you're going to Wisconsin, I'm talking about, overseas or what have you. So if you're traveling, I don't see this being a cruise. I see this being something that is where you're walking around a lot, where you're really moving. And so that can be an influence in July. On the 20th, we have something called a black moon. So just like the blue moon is a second full moon in a month, the black moon is the second new moon in a month. And apparently, from what I just read, these occur every 2.5 years, approximately. And so this time around, they are in Cancer. And the characteristic of a black moon is that the first one will be close to the 0 degree mark. And sure enough, the solar eclipse in Cancer is at 0 degrees of Cancer on the summer solstice or the day after on June 21st. And now, a month later, on July 20th, we have a black moon at 28 degrees of Cancer. So again, this area is activated for you, this 12th house. Now, the interesting thing about this, Leo, is that what they say is that the black moon being the second new moon is the real deal when it comes to new beginnings. That the first new moon in that sign is more of a false start. I am not convinced of that in this particular case because of the fact that the first new moon is actually a solar eclipse. So I think that has to be taken into account. It's not just a garden variety new moon. It's very powerful. So I would say that this is just the 1-2 punch, and these, Cancer is your 12th house. So it's possible, since the first one is at 0 degrees, that it's more likely to affect your 11th house of hopes and wishes, that solar eclipse. And this one is really about the 12th house. So with that being said, Cancer, Leo, this is an area that for the next couple of years is something that you may want to pursue and start something new with. And this would involve things like meditation, other spiritual practices, or studies. And if you think about it, obviously I'm speaking to those people who have an interest in it. If you have absolutely no interest in spiritual matters, then, I don't think it's a good idea to force yourself to do anything. But if you do have an interest, this is something that in a couple of years or 2.5 years, you may look back and say, that's when I began this new part of my life, and now it has come to fruition. On the 22nd, the sun goes into your sign. And so we begin the cycle with the sun in Leo. The sun rules Leo, so there's that real sense of optimism. And like I said, I think this month is a little bit more mellow, a little bit less hectic. And I hope that you definitely have that kind of a month. You deserve it, Leo. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you'd like a personal reading, please check my offerings at the link below. Take care. Bye.